60 Minutes Rewind.
Convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has been accused of sexually assaulting countless teenage girls. Last July, the wealthy financier was arrested, and many of his victims were looking forward to finally facing him in court. But weeks after his arrest, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. The medical examiner concluded that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Since then, conspiracy theories have flourished. Epstein was connected to a long list of rich and powerful people. Some suspect he was killed because of what he knew or what he threatened to tell. How did one of the most high-profile inmates in the country end up dead in a federal jail? After a 5-month investigation, 60 Minutes has obtained photos, some of them graphic autopsy photos, and evidence from inside Jeffrey Epstein's cell. This is the cell where Jeffrey Epstein was found on Saturday morning, August 10, 2019. There are dozens of photos taken by the medical examiner's office that day. On the floor, a mattress and piles of sheets. Several nooses that appear to be fashioned from the orange bed linens are laid out. His medicines photographed, but no body.
Is there a photograph of when he was found dead in the cell?
No, there's no photograph taken of Mr. Epstein in the cell.
Dr. Michael Bodden observed the 4-hour autopsy for Jeffrey Epstein's brother Mark. Bodden, a renowned forensic pathologist who's taken controversial positions over his decades-long career, is investigating Epstein's death for his client.
Do you think there was foul play here?
The forensic evidence released so far, including the autopsy, point much more to murder and strangulation than the suicide and suicidal hanging. I hesitate to make a final opinion until all the evidence is in.
People will say, well, you're being paid by Mark Epstein, so of course you're going to say that something suspicious is going on.
That's a reasonable thing for some people to think, but our job is to find what the truth is, just to find out whether it's a homicide or a suicide. We still haven't gotten all the information.
Guards found Epstein at approximately 6:33 a.m., and sources say one of them could be overheard saying, "Breathe, Epstein, breathe."
I thought at the time...
Dr. Bodden believes, based on the autopsy, that Epstein died around 4:30 that morning, 2 hours earlier.
The guards say they came in at 6:30, they found him, they call emergency services, they tried to do CPR with him, but he's dead. But rather than leave the body there, they take the body to an emergency room.
Yeah.
Is that normal protocol?
No, that's not normal protocol. The EMS people normally, and especially in jail, should not move a dead body.
He's right. Bureau of Prison Protocol mandates a suicide scene should be treated with the same level of protection as any crime scene in which a death has occurred. 60 Minutes reviewed hundreds of graphic photographs from the autopsy of Jeffrey Epstein and inside his cell. There are 2 nooses, a bit of orange sheet tied to the grate of a window. On the top bunk, bottles and medicine stand upright. Below it, another piece of fabric is tied through a hole on the bed about 4 feet from the ground. Did Epstein, who was nearly 6 feet tall and 185 pounds, somehow lean in and hang himself from the lower bunk? We don't know. These are the known facts. On July 6th, Jeffrey Epstein was booked into the Metropolitan Correctional Center, or MCC, in downtown Manhattan, a federal high-security holding facility for inmates awaiting trial. Suicides at the MCC are rare. The last one was 14 years ago. The jail has temporarily housed everyone from Mexican drug lord El Chapo to mafia boss John Gotti and fraudster Bernie Madoff.
MCC is the worst jail or prison I've ever been to, by far.
It's not a club fed.
It's not a club anything. It is dirty, it's insect infested, rodent infested. It was built for about 350 and it houses over 700, so the inmates are packed in.
Bruce Barquette is the lawyer for Epstein's first cellmate, 52-year-old Nick Tartaglione, a brawny former police officer accused of murdering 4 men. They shared a cell in the SHU, the special housing unit, which is considered safer than general population.
Jail's a tough place, the rules don't exist the way they do in society, somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, an elderly, rich, white male is going to have a tough time in general population.
Epstein was directing money to be deposited in other inmates' commissary accounts in exchange for his protection, sources say, because he feared for his life. But the government says Epstein was suicidal and made his first failed suicide attempt weeks after he arrived. According to court documents, on July 23rd, a guard found Epstein on the floor of his cell with a strip of bedsheet around his neck. Epstein claimed his cellmate, Nick Tartaglione, attacked him.
Epstein says that Nick tried to kill him. Nick says absolutely nothing like that happened.
It's not just Nick says absolutely nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. No one says that Nick tried to kill Epstein.
Epstein was moved to the psych unit and placed on suicide watch. But 1 week later, Epstein, at the direction of the MCC's psychological staff, was taken off suicide watch and required to have an assigned cellmate.
This was a monumental failure on all levels, and that's why it has fueled the conspiracies, and I understand that.
Cameron Lindsay is a former federal prison warden.
Who should have made sure that he wasn't taken off suicide watch, in your opinion?
The leadership of the facility should have stepped in and said, while I appreciate the perspective of you, chief psychologist, I'm going to override that decision and we're going to leave Epstein on suicide watch, especially subsequent to the suicide attempt that he had.
Epstein was moved back to the SHU and assigned a new cellmate. We reviewed photos and interviewed jail employees to create this composite of the area. Each tier of the SHU has 8 cells, usually with 2 inmates per cell. Epstein's cell, 220, was about 15 feet away and up a set of stairs from the guard station with a single locked gate between them. The gate is the only way in or out of the tier. Lawyers say the day before Epstein was found dead, he was upbeat and looking forward to an appeal hearing on his bail. That same day, his cellmate was released and no new cellmate was assigned, even though he was required to have one. Michael Thomas and Tova Noel are the 2 guards who were working the overnight shift on the SHU. Court documents say Epstein was escorted into his cell by Tova Noel at approximately 7:49 p.m. Then, the guards didn't check in on him again until shortly after 6:30 a.m. the next morning.
So in the SHU, they should be checked in on every 30 minutes?
They should be checked on every 30 minutes. It's my understanding, based on the documents that I examined, the 2 officers that were working in the special housing unit allegedly falsified the records and did not do any rounds for approximately 8 hours.
How big of a deal is that?
That's a huge, huge deal. This is one of the most basic operational aspects of managing a jail or prison.
Instead, federal prosecutors say surveillance video makes clear the guards searched the internet and appeared to have been asleep. Both guards were working overtime.
When you're being forced to stay over shifts, not go home and see your family, you start to see people take shortcuts.
Tyrone Covington is the president of the union that represents the guards, who both now face criminal charges and have pleaded not guilty.
I absolutely believe that these staff members are being made a scapegoat.
Because it was Jeffrey Epstein?
Because it was Jeffrey Epstein.
Covington doesn't think there was any foul play, and he says there should be surveillance video to prove it. In November, Attorney General William Barr told reporters he personally reviewed surveillance video that showed nobody entered the area where Epstein was held. But sources say a second camera inside the tier, the one that could have seen Epstein's cell door and the doors of other inmates, was not working that night.
The theories that are out there, one of them is that it was another inmate who may have killed Jeffrey Epstein.
Come on.
You don't believe that?
He was found hanging in his cell. He had tried to commit suicide before that. He was a very wealthy man who was looking at a lifetime in prison. You know, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
So Epstein's taken off suicide watch. The day before he kills himself, his roommate is removed from the cell. The cameras on his tier are not working. The guards fell asleep. It seems almost impossible to think all of those things could happen in that way.
It does, and that's what makes this so shocking. I mean, this is a failure on multiple levels.
Do you think there's any way that Jeffrey Epstein could have been murdered?
Absolutely, unequivocally not.
The story will continue after this.
There was a note in Jeffrey Epstein's cell. He wrote that one guard kept me in a locked shower stall for 1 hour. Noel, the guard, sent me burnt food. Giant bugs crawling over my hands. No fun. Dr. Michael Bodden says if anyone thought Jeffrey Epstein was suicidal, they wouldn't have let him have a ballpoint pen that could be used to harm himself or someone else.
The other thing we just noticed looking at the photos, it appears he had some kind of sleep apnea machine. You can see a long electrical cord.
Yes, there were other wires and cords present that it would have been easy to use to hang oneself within a few minutes.
But the key reason Dr. Bodden thinks Jeffrey Epstein's death might be a homicide is because of the unusual fractures he saw in Epstein's neck.
There were fractures of the left, the right thyroid cartilage, and the left hyoid bone.
This is an autopsy photo of Epstein's broken hyoid bone, a U-shaped bone that sits under the jaw that part of the tongue attaches to. The thyroid cartilage sits at the front of the neck.
I have never seen 3 fractures like this in a suicidal hanging. Sometimes there's a fracture of the hyoid bone or a fracture of the thyroid cartilage.
But not 3.
Very unusual to have 2 and not 3. And going over 1,000 jail hangings, suicides in the New York City state prisons over the past 40, 50 years, no one had 3 fractures.
The New York City Medical Examiner's Office disputes Bodden's theory, saying that fractures of the hyoid bone and cartilage can be seen in suicides and homicides, and they stand firmly behind their finding of suicide by hanging. Then there's the 2 nooses. This was the one that was sketched and included in the autopsy by the medical examiner, presumably because they thought it was used in Epstein's death. But Dr. Bodden says that noose and the wounds on Jeffrey Epstein's neck don't appear to match.
What do you see when you see these 2 things together?
What I see here is that this noose doesn't match the ligature furrow mark. It's wider than this.
To the naked eye, it looks like there's some blood here, and it doesn't look like there's any blood on this noose.
That's right. This looks like a clean noose that was never used to compress anybody's neck.
There's also something that's striking about the photos. The wound is down here. You'd think if somebody hung themselves, the wound would be maybe up here.
Yes. Most hangings, especially free hangings, the ligature slides up to beneath the jawbone, the mandible. Here it's in the middle of the neck.
Dr. Bodden says a wound straight across the neck is more common when a victim is strangled by a wire or cord. He and Epstein's brother Mark met with the government and asked to see any forensic testing and any video. But they say they were told the ongoing criminal case against the 2 guards prevents the Justice Department from releasing any information.
So the criminal charges are now basically a firewall for the family to get any information about
From
what's
the Justice Department.
The charges have also silenced the guards. The attorney for guard Michael Thomas says 5 months after Epstein's death, Thomas has still not spoken to investigators or revealed how he alone found Epstein's body. Disappointed that they never got to face Epstein in court, many victims are now angry that the investigation into his death has left so many questions still unanswered.